The morning sun cast long shadows across the palace gardens as William stood by the window, watching Kate tend to her beloved roses. She moved with the same grace that had captured his heart years ago. But something was different now. Her movements were slower, more deliberate, as if she was memorizing every petal, every leaf. The doctors had given them 6 months, but Kate had surprised everyone by living 2 years beyond that prediction. Now, as autumn painted the world in shades of gold and amber, they both knew their time was running short. Kate looked up from her flowers and caught William watching her. A gentle smile crossed her face, the same smile that had lit up Westminster Abbey on their wedding day. She didn't need to speak. After 25 years of marriage, they had developed their own silent language. Her eyes said what her voice couldn't anymore. That she was ready, that she wasn't afraid, and that their love would continue long after her physical presence was gone. William walked slowly toward her, his footsteps crunching on the fallen leaves. The palace staff had offered to clean the garden paths, but Kate had specifically asked them to leave the leaves. She said they reminded her that letting go could be beautiful too. As he reached her side, she leaned into him, and they stood together in comfortable silence, watching their 3 children play in the distance. George, now grown with children of his own, was pushing his youngest daughter on the old swing that William's father had installed decades ago. Charlotte was reading under the oak tree where she and her mother had shared countless afternoon conversations. Louis was practicing his piano through the open music room windows, the melody drifting across the garden like a lullaby. Kate had insisted that life continue normally, that their children and grandchildren shouldn't put their lives on hold. The couple made their way to the small bench Kate had claimed as her favorite spot. It overlooked the pond where they had taught their children to feed the ducks, where they had celebrated birthdays and anniversaries, where they had shared both joy and sorrow. Kate reached into her pocket and pulled out a small leather journal. She had been writing in it every day since her diagnosis, recording memories, thoughts, and letters to their family for the future. "I finished the last entry today," she whispered, her voice barely audible. William took the journal with trembling hands, knowing it contained her final gift to their family. Inside were letters for birthdays she wouldn't attend, graduations she wouldn't witness, and wedding days she wouldn't see. There were recipes for the children's favorite meals, stories about their family history, and advice for the challenges that lay ahead. As the afternoon sun began to set, painting the sky in brilliant oranges and purples, Kate made a decision that would define their final weeks together. She turned to William with determination in her eyes and spoke words that would change everything. "I want to say goodbye to the people who have shared our journey. Not with sadness, but with gratitude. I want them to remember our love story, not our ending." William understood immediately. Kate wasn't just talking about their family and close friends. She was talking about the millions of people around the world who had followed their love story, celebrated their milestones, and supported them through difficult times. She wanted to give them one final gift, a farewell that honored their shared journey and celebrated the love that had sustained them through everything. That evening, as they sat by the fireplace in their private quarters, Kate began planning what would become the most moving farewell the world had ever witnessed. She didn't want a traditional announcement or a formal statement. Instead, she envisioned something personal, something that would touch hearts and remind people that love transcends even death. William listened as his beloved wife outlined her vision, knowing that he would honor every wish, no matter how difficult it might be for him personally. The decision was made in that quiet moment by the fire, with only the crackling logs as witness. They would spend their remaining time creating memories, sharing their love story one final time, and preparing a goodbye that would bring healing rather than just heartbreak. Kate's courage in facing her mortality with such grace and purpose inspired William to be strong, not just for her, but for everyone who would need to find their own way through grief and loss. As they prepared for bed that night, Kate placed her hand over William's heart and smiled. "Our love story isn't ending," she said softly. "It's just changing chapters." Those words would echo in William's mind through all the days to come, reminding him that some bonds are too strong for even death to break. The next morning would begin their journey toward a farewell that would touch millions of hearts and redefine how the world understood love, loss, and letting go. The following morning brought an unexpected visitor to the palace. Emma, Kate's childhood friend and confidant, arrived with tears in her eyes and a heart full of memories. She had received Kate's letter the previous evening, a handwritten note asking her to come for tea and to bring the photo albums from their university days. Emma knew what this meant, but she was determined to make their time together as joyful as possible. Kate greeted her friend with the warmth that had remained constant throughout her illness. They settled in the sunroom where afternoon light filtered through the windows, creating patterns on the floor that reminded them both of their carefree days at St. Andrew's University. Emma had brought not just photo albums, but also a small wooden box that contained ticket stubs, postcards, and handwritten notes from their friendship spanning over 3 decades. As they flipped through the photographs, Kate's eyes sparkled with delight. There were pictures of her and William during their university romance, candid shots of double dates and images from their early days of courtship when the world didn't yet know about their love story. Emma had carefully preserved every moment, understanding even then that she was documenting something extraordinary. "Do you remember when you first told me about William?" Emma asked, pointing to a photo of Kate laughing at a university party. Kate's face lit up as she recalled that autumn evening when she had rushed back to their shared apartment, breathless with excitement about the kind, funny boy she had met in her art history class. Emma had listened for hours as Kate described how different William was from what she had expected, how he made her laugh, and how comfortable she felt in his presence. The conversation flowed naturally between past and present as Kate shared her plans for the farewell she was organizing. She wanted it to be a celebration of love stories everywhere, not just her own. Kate had decided to visit some of the places that had been meaningful in her relationship with William, creating a visual journey through their love, story that others could follow and find inspiration in their own lives. Emma listened as Kate explained her vision for what she called a love letter to love itself. She wanted to visit the small cafe where William had first told her he loved her, the park where he had proposed, and the church where they had been married. At each location, she planned to leave something behind, a flower, a note, or a small token, that others could discover and be reminded that love leaves lasting imprints on the world. "I want people to see that our story wasn't special because we were royal," Kate explained, her voice growing stronger with conviction. "It was special because love itself is extraordinary. Every couple has moments like ours, places that hold their hearts, memories that sustain them through difficult times. I want our farewell to honor all of those love stories." William joined them for afternoon tea, bringing with him a leather portfolio filled with their wedding photographs and letters they had written to each other over the years. Emma watched as the couple shared a wordless conversation, their eyes speaking volumes about the depth of their connection. She realized she was witnessing something profound, a love so deep that it could face mortality with grace and still find ways to give joy to others. As the afternoon progressed, Kate asked Emma to help her write letters to young couples who might be facing similar challenges. She wanted to share what she had learned about love, marriage, and finding strength in each other during the darkest times. Emma agreed immediately, understanding that these letters would become treasured gifts for people around the world who were struggling with their own battles. The 3 friends spent the evening recording Kate's voice as she read passages from poems that had sustained her throughout her illness. Her clear, gentle voice spoke words of hope, resilience, and enduring love. These recordings would later become part of her farewell gift to the world, offering comfort to anyone who needed to hear that it was possible to face the unknown with courage and grace. Before Emma left that night, Kate gave her a special assignment. She asked her to coordinate with William's staff to document their farewell journey, but not as a media event or royal obligation. Instead, she wanted it captured as a simple love story between 2 people who had found something worth cherishing. Emma understood the weight of this responsibility and promised to help create something beautiful and authentic. As they hugged goodbye at the palace entrance, Kate whispered to her oldest friend, "Thank you for keeping our memories safe all these years. Now help me create one final memory that will keep our love alive for others." Emma drove home that night with tears streaming down her face, but also with a sense of purpose. She would help Kate create a farewell that honored not just their individual love story, but the universal power of love to transform lives and transcend even death itself. The next morning, Emma began making the phone calls and arrangements that would bring Kate's vision to life. She contacted photographers who specialized in intimate, authentic moments rather than formal portraits. She reached out to the small businesses and local communities that had been part of William and Kate's journey. Most importantly, she began organizing a farewell that would touch hearts around the world while respecting the private, personal nature of their love story. The small cafe on the outskirts of Cambridge looked exactly as it had 27 years ago, when William first whispered, "I love you," to Kate across a corner table. The owner, Mrs. Henderson, had maintained the same checkered tablecloths, mismatched chairs, and hand-painted menu board that had witnessed countless first dates, proposals, and anniversary celebrations over the decades. When she received the quiet request for a private visit, she immediately understood the significance. Kate arrived early that Tuesday morning, wearing a simple blue dress that reminded William of the one she had worn on that long-ago day when their love story took its most important turn. She moved slowly through the cafe, touching the back of chairs and running her fingers along the windowsill where they used to sit and watch students hurrying to their morning classes. Mrs. Henderson offered tea, but Kate politely declined, explaining that she just wanted to sit quietly and remember. William found her at their old table, gazing out the window with a peaceful expression. He slipped into the chair across from her, and for a moment they were 20-year-old students again, nervous and excited about the feelings growing between them. Kate reached across the table and took his hand, her fingers tracing the wedding ring he had worn for over 2 decades. "Do you remember what you said to me here?" she asked softly. William nodded, his voice catching as he repeated the words that had changed their lives. "I love you, Kate Middleton, and I want to love you for the rest of my life." At the time, they had been young and full of dreams, unable to imagine the challenges and joys that lay ahead. Now, facing the end of their earthly journey together, those words carried even deeper meaning. Kate pulled out a small envelope from her purse and placed it on the table. Inside was a letter she had written to any couple who might sit at this same table in the future, sharing the secret to lasting love that she and William had discovered through years of marriage. The letter spoke about choosing each other every day, finding joy in ordinary moments, and holding on to hope during difficult times. Mrs. Henderson approached with tears in her eyes, carrying a small potted plant with delicate white flowers. "These bloom every spring," she explained. "I thought you might like to plant this here, so part of your love story stays in this place forever." Kate accepted the gift with gratitude, and together, she and William walked to the small garden behind the cafe, where Mrs. Henderson had prepared a special spot near the window where they used to sit. As Kate gently placed the plant in the earth, William read aloud from a poem she had written about their first "I love you." The words spoke about how love plants seeds that grow into something bigger than the 2 people who first shared it. Other customers in the cafe had gathered quietly at the windows, sensing they were witnessing something extraordinary, though they maintained respectful distance. The couple spent another hour in the cafe, sharing stories with Mrs. Henderson about the young couples who still came to the same table, many of whom had been inspired by the royal love story they had followed for decades. Kate left her letter with instructions that it should be given to any couple celebrating an anniversary or engagement at their special table. She also left a small donation to help Mrs. Henderson maintain the cafe as a place where love stories could continue to unfold. Before leaving, Kate asked William to take a photograph of her sitting at their table, not as a formal portrait, but as a simple snapshot of a woman remembering the moment her life changed forever. The image would later become one of the most cherished photos in their collection, not because of its technical quality, but because it captured the pure joy of remembering a perfect moment. Their next stop was the park where William had proposed 15 years earlier. The old oak tree still stood strong, its branches now fuller and more expansive, having weathered many seasons of growth and change. Kate had chosen this location because she wanted to return William's grandmother's ring to the place where it had fulfilled its most important purpose. They found the exact spot where William had gotten down on one knee, now marked by a small memorial bench dedicated to couples who wanted to celebrate their engagements. Kate sat on the bench and slowly removed her engagement ring, holding it up to catch the afternoon sunlight. The sapphire sparkled with the same brilliance it had shown on that nervous day when William had asked her to be his wife. "This ring has done its job," she said gently. "It brought us together, and now it needs to help someone else find their happiness." Kate had arranged for the ring to be donated to a charity that helped young couples facing financial difficulties afford engagement rings. The ring would be reset and given to a couple who had demonstrated the same commitment and love that she and William had shared. William struggled with this decision, understanding Kate's reasoning but finding it difficult to let go of something so symbolic of their beginning. Kate took his face in her hands and reminded him that their love had never been about the ring or the titles or the external symbols. It had always been about the choice they made each day to build a life together based on respect, laughter, and unwavering support. As they prepared to leave the park, a young couple approached hesitantly. They had recognized Kate and William, but were unsure whether to intrude on what was obviously a private moment. Kate invited them to sit on the bench and asked about their own love story. The young woman shyly explained that they had been coming to this park for months, trying to work up the courage to get engaged, but worried about whether they were ready for such a big commitment. Kate and William spent the next hour sharing stories about their own doubts and fears before getting engaged, offering encouragement and wisdom gained through years of marriage. By the time they said goodbye, the young couple was holding hands with new confidence, and Kate had given them a small gift, a handwritten note with advice about building a strong foundation for lasting love. Westminster Abbey stood silent in the early morning light as Kate and William arrived for their most emotional visit yet. The ancient stones had witnessed centuries of royal ceremonies, but none had been more joyful than their wedding day 12 years earlier. Now, returning to the place where they had promised to love each other, in sickness and in health, Kate felt the full weight of those vows and how completely they had honored them. The dean had opened the abbey specially for their private visit. Understanding the sacred nature of their farewell journey, Kate moved slowly down the aisle where she had walked as a radiant bride, her father's arm steady beside her, while 2 billion people around the world watched their fairy tale unfold. Today, she walked the same path supported by William's gentle strength, their footsteps echoing in the vast empty space. They stopped at the altar where they had exchanged rings and promises that had sustained them through the challenges of royal life. The joy of raising 3 children, and now the ultimate test of facing mortality together. Kate placed her hand on the altar and closed her eyes, remembering the moment when the Archbishop had pronounced them husband and wife. The happiness of that day felt as real and present as if it had happened yesterday. William produced a small wooden box from his jacket pocket, containing the handwritten vows they had written for each other, but never spoken aloud during the formal ceremony. Kate had forgotten about these private promises until William reminded her of them the week before. They had been too personal, too intimate for the public ceremony, but now felt like the perfect way to honor their marriage in this sacred space. Taking turns, they read their original vows to each other, words that had proven prophetic in their accuracy and depth. Kate's vows spoke about wanting to be William's safe harbor in any storm, his celebration partner in every joy, and his faithful companion on whatever path life might take them. William's vows promised to protect Kate's dreams, encourage her strength, and love her with increasing devotion every day of their lives together. As they finished reading, Kate made a request that surprised even William. She wanted to renew their vows, right there in the Abbey, not as a public ceremony but as a private affirmation of the love that would continue beyond her physical presence. The dean, who had officiated their original wedding, stepped forward to help them create an impromptu ceremony that would be witnessed only by the ancient stones and stained glass windows. With trembling voices, they repeated the traditional vows that had bound them together, but this time with full knowledge of what in sickness and in health truly meant. When William promised to love Kate until death do us part, she gently corrected him, whispering, "Until death brings us together again." The dean blessed their renewed commitment, understanding that he was witnessing something unprecedented, a couple choosing to strengthen their bond even as they prepared to let go. After the ceremony, Kate asked to spend time alone in the small chapel where they had prayed together on their wedding morning. She had brought with her the prayer book that had belonged to William's mother, Diana, and wanted to leave it in the Abbey as a symbol of the love that had passed from one generation to the next. Inside the prayer book, She had written letters to her future daughters-in-law, sharing wisdom about loving the men in their family and maintaining strength during the challenges that royal life would bring. William waited outside the chapel, giving Kate the privacy she needed for this final conversation with his mother's memory. Through the partially open door, he could hear Kate's soft voice as she spoke to Diana about their children, expressing gratitude for the lessons about compassion and service that Diana's example had taught her. Kate promised to watch over their family from wherever she was going, just as Diana had continued to guide and protect them throughout their marriage. When Kate emerged from the chapel, her face was peaceful and radiant. She had left not only Diana's prayer book, but also her own wedding bouquet, which she had carefully preserved all these years. The flowers had been dried and arranged in a special case, and Kate felt it was time for them to rest in the place where their love story had been officially blessed. Their final stop in the Abbey was the Poet's Corner, where Kate had always felt inspired by the words of those who had captured the essence of human emotion and experience. She had written her own poem about their love story, not for publication or posterity, but as a gift to William. Standing among the memorials to the greatest writers in English literature, she read him verses about how their love had taught her that the best stories never really end. They just transform into new chapters. The poem spoke about finding forever in temporary moments, about love that grows stronger even as the body grows weaker, and about the certainty that some connections transcend physical existence. William listened with tears streaming down his face, knowing that Kate's words would become his most treasured possession, more valuable than any crown or title he would ever wear. As they prepared to leave the Abbey, Kate made one final gesture that would become part of the legend surrounding their farewell. She removed her wedding veil, which she had worn briefly during their ceremony, and placed it on the altar as an offering. The veil would remain in the Abbey as a symbol of the love that had blessed not only their marriage but had inspired millions of people around the world to believe in the possibility of lasting love. Walking back down the aisle together, Kate and William felt the presence of all the couples who had been married in this sacred space, all the promises that had been made, and all the love stories that had unfolded within these walls. Their own story was becoming part of this eternal tapestry, woven into the fabric of an institution that had celebrated love for nearly 1,000 years. Outside the Abbey, a small crowd had gathered. Having heard whispers about the royal couple's private visit, Kate and William paused to greet them, accepting flowers and kind words from people who had followed their love story for years. In that moment, Kate realized that their farewell was becoming exactly what she had hoped. Not an ending, but a celebration that encouraged others to cherish their own love stories with greater appreciation and intention. The hospital children's ward had always held a special place in Kate's heart, but today's visit carried extra significance as she prepared to say goodbye to the young patients who had taught her so much about courage and hope. The nurses had decorated the playroom with drawings and get-well cards that children from around the world had sent when news of Kate's illness had become public. Each colorful creation showed stick figures of Kate and William holding hands, surrounded by hearts and rainbows. 8-year-old Sophie was waiting in her favorite corner of the playroom, clutching a handmade book she had created especially for Kate's visit. The little girl had been battling her own serious illness for 2 years, and she and Kate had developed a special friendship through Kate's regular visits to the ward. Sophie's book was titled How to Be Brave When You're Scared, and each page contained wisdom that only a child facing mortality could possess. Kate sat cross-legged on the floor beside Sophie's wheelchair, listening intently as the little girl read her book aloud. The story featured a princess who discovered that being brave didn't mean not being afraid. It meant doing what needed to be done despite the fear. Sophie had illustrated each page with careful detail, showing the princess helping other people even when she was feeling sick or worried about the future. "I wrote this for you," Sophie said seriously, "because I know you're scared sometimes too. But you still come here and make us feel better, just like the princess in my story." Kate accepted the book with trembling hands, realizing that this child had understood something profound about their shared journey that many adults had missed. They were both facing uncertain futures, but they had found strength in caring for others. William arrived with a collection of video messages from children around the world who had been inspired by Kate's courage and grace during her illness. The messages came from young cancer patients, children in hospitals, and kids who had simply been touched by the royal couple's love story. Each video contained drawings, songs, or simple words of encouragement that showed how Kate's example had helped other children face their own challenges with greater bravery. Together, Kate and William spent the afternoon with a dozen young patients, listening to their stories and sharing their own experiences about finding joy during difficult times. 12-year-old Marcus, who had been paralyzed in an accident, had written a letter to William about the importance of being a good husband when your wife is sick. His own parents had divorced after his accident, and he wanted to tell William how much it meant to see a couple supporting each other through hard times. 10-year-old Emma had painted a portrait of Kate surrounded by all the flowers from her palace garden, each bloom representing a different memory or moment of happiness. The painting was technically imperfect but emotionally flawless, capturing Kate's essential warmth and kindness in ways that professional portraits had never managed. Kate promised to hang the painting in her bedroom so it would be the last thing she saw each night. The afternoon's most moving moment came when the children presented. Kate with a quilt they had been working on for months. Each square had been created by a different young patient, and together they told the story of Kate's life and the impact she had made on their own journeys. One square showed Kate reading to children, another depicted her wedding day, and several celebrated the work she had done to help young people facing mental health challenges. Kate wrapped herself in the quilt and closed her eyes. Feeling the love that had been stitched into every thread, she told the children that she would treasure it always, and that whenever William felt lonely after she was gone, he could wrap himself in their love and remember that healing continues even after someone leaves. The children nodded solemnly, understanding in the way that only young people facing serious challenges can comprehend. Before leaving, Kate made a special announcement that brought tears to the eyes of every adult in the room. She and William had established a foundation that would ensure these children received not only medical care, but also art supplies, books, and music lessons that would help them express their feelings and find joy during treatment. The foundation would be funded by donations made in Kate's memory, creating a lasting legacy of the love she had shared with these brave young patients. As they prepared to say goodbye, each child gave Kate a small token to take with her: a painted stone, a handmade bracelet, a folded paper flower, or a tiny stuffed animal. She carefully placed each gift in a special bag that William carried, promising that these treasures would stay close to her heart. The children had taught her that saying goodbye didn't have to mean forgetting, and that love shared genuinely creates connections that outlast physical presence. The final surprise came from Sophie, who had secretly organized the other children to sing a song they had written for Kate. The lyrics spoke about angels who don't need wings because they fly on love, and about how some people stay with you forever because they leave pieces of their hearts in the hearts of others. As their young voices filled the playroom, Kate realized that these children had given her the greatest gift possible, the understanding that her life had created ripples of love that would continue spreading long after she was gone. Walking through the hospital corridors for the last time, Kate and William were accompanied by nurses and doctors who had become family over the years of her treatment and visits. They shared stories about Kate's impact on the ward, how her presence had encouraged other patients, and how her example of grace under pressure had inspired the medical staff to approach their own work with greater compassion and dedication. Outside the hospital, a group of parents whose children had been treated on the ward gathered to thank Kate for the hope she had brought to their families. Many of these parents had drawn strength from watching Kate face her own challenges, while continuing to support others. Her example had shown them that it was possible to find meaning and purpose even in the midst of suffering, and that love expressed genuinely has the power to heal hearts even when it cannot cure bodies. As they drove away from the hospital, Kate clutched Sophie's book and smiled through her tears. The children had taught her that saying goodbye could be an act of love rather than loss, and that the bravest thing anyone can do is to keep giving love right up until the very end. Their courage had inspired her own, and she knew that their memory would give William strength in the difficult days ahead. The family's private beach house in Scotland had always been their sanctuary, a place where they could simply be William and Kate rather than Duke and Duchess. Now, as Kate's strength continued to fade, they had come here for what they both knew would be their final family gathering. The October air was crisp and clean, carrying the scent of salt and seaweed that had welcomed them here for countless holidays and celebrations over the years. George arrived first with his own family, his two young children immediately running to embrace their grandmother Kate with the unconscious joy that only grandchildren possess. 4-year-old Alice had drawn pictures of seashells and starfish for Kate, while 6-year-old James had collected smooth stones from the beach to add to the jar Kate kept on her nightstand. Neither child fully understood the gravity of this gathering, seeing only the excitement of being together at their favorite place. Charlotte came next, bringing her husband and their newborn son, whom they had named William in honor of his grandfather. Kate held her newest grandson with trembling hands, marveling at his tiny fingers and the way he seemed to look directly into her soul with his bright blue eyes. She whispered lullabies that her own mother had sung to her, knowing that this baby would have no memory of her voice, but hoping that somehow the love in those songs would become part of his foundation. Louis, now a successful musician, had written a special composition for this gathering, a piece that captured the essence of their family's love story through melody rather than words. He played it on the old piano that had survived countless beach vacations, its keys slightly warped from salt air but still capable of producing beautiful music. The composition wove together themes from their wedding song, lullabies Kate had hummed while nursing her babies, and new melodies that spoke of love that transcends physical presence. As the family gathered for dinner on their final evening together, Kate asked each person to share their favorite memory of their time as a family. The stories flowed like a gentle tide, camping trips where they had gotten lost and found adventure instead of frustration, birthday celebrations that had been ruined by rain but made magical by their determination to find joy anyway, and quiet moments of everyday life that had seemed ordinary at the time, but now gleamed like precious jewels in memory. William shared the story of Kate's first visit to this beach house 25 years earlier, when she had been nervous about meeting his family and worried about fitting in with royal traditions. He described how she had won everyone's hearts not through careful protocol, but through her genuine interest in learning about family history, her willingness to help with cooking and cleaning, and her infectious laughter when things went wrong. She had approached royal life the same way she approached everything else, with authenticity, kindness, and determination to do her best. Kate surprised everyone by presenting each family member with a personalized gift she had been secretly preparing for months. For George, there was a photo album documenting his journey from nervous young prince to confident father and leader, along with letters of advice for the challenges that lay ahead in his royal duties. Charlotte received a collection of Kate's favorite books with handwritten notes in the margins, sharing the passages that had given Kate strength and wisdom throughout her life. Louis's gift was perhaps the most touching, a collection of recordings Kate had made of herself humming the melodies he had composed over the years, creating a library of lullabies and songs that could be shared with future generations. For William, she had prepared something even more precious, a video diary she had been recording throughout her illness, capturing her thoughts, feelings, and love messages for him to watch whenever he felt lonely or lost. The grandchildren received treasure boxes filled with small mementos from Kate's life, her childhood jewelry, pressed flowers from their wedding bouquet, seashells from family vacations, and handwritten stories about their family history. Each box also contained a letter to be opened on their 18th birthday, sharing Kate's hopes and dreams for their futures and the values she hoped they would carry forward. As evening settled over the beach house, the family gathered on the large deck overlooking the ocean. Kate had asked them to help her complete one final tradition, releasing paper lanterns into the night sky, each one carrying a wish or prayer for the future. They had done this ritual every year during their beach holidays, but tonight felt different, more sacred and significant than all the previous years combined. One by one, they lit their lanterns and shared the wishes they contained. George wished for wisdom to lead with the same grace and compassion his mother had shown. Charlotte wished for the strength to raise her children with the same love and security she had received. Louis wished for the ability to create music that would comfort people the way his mother's presence had comforted everyone she met. William's lantern carried a wish that surprised no one but moved everyone to tears. He wished for the courage to honor Kate's memory by continuing to love others with the same generosity and warmth she had shown throughout her life. Kate's own lantern carried a wish for her family's continued happiness and a prayer that their love for each other would only grow stronger in the years to come. As the lanterns drifted up toward the stars, Kate made an announcement that she had been planning for weeks. She wanted the family to continue gathering at this beach house every year on this same date, not to mourn her absence but to celebrate the love that had brought them together and would continue to sustain them. She asked them to bring their children and eventually their grandchildren, sharing stories and creating new memories while honoring the foundation she and William had built. The evening ended with the entire family gathered in the living room, sharing stories late into the night while Kate rested comfortably surrounded by the people she loved most. The sound of their laughter and conversation, mixed with the gentle rhythm of waves outside, created a symphony of family love that would echo in each of their hearts for the rest of their lives. Before they went to bed, Kate asked for a few minutes alone with William on the beach where they had taken so many walks over the years. Under the starlight, she told him that this gathering had given her the peace she needed to let go, knowing that their love would continue to hold their family together, even after she was gone. They walked hand in hand along the water's edge, creating one final set of footprints in the sand that would be washed away by morning's tide but would remain forever in their hearts. 3 weeks after the family gathering at the beach house, Kate knew her time had come. The morning dawned clear and peaceful, with golden sunlight streaming through the windows of their private quarters at the palace. She had awakened before sunrise, as had become her habit in recent weeks, wanting to savor every moment of consciousness that remained to her. William stirred beside her, immediately alert to any change in her condition, his devotion never wavering even in sleep. "Today feels different," Kate whispered, her voice barely audible but filled with certainty rather than fear. William understood immediately. After months of preparing for this moment, they both recognized the signs that their earthly journey together was coming to its close. He gathered Kate gently in his arms and they lay together in peaceful silence, watching the sun paint their room in shades of gold and amber that reminded them of the autumn morning when they had first acknowledged that time was running short. Emma arrived at mid-morning, having received the gentle summons that had been arranged weeks in advance. She brought with her the final elements of Kate's farewell project, a collection of photographs and videos from their journey through the meaningful places of William and Kate's love story. The response from around the world had been overwhelming, with millions of people sharing their own love stories, inspired by the royal couple's graceful approach to saying goodbye. The three friends spent Kate's final hours creating a digital time capsule that would be released after her passing. It contained not only the documentation of their farewell journey, but also messages from people whose lives had been touched by Kate's example of facing mortality with courage and grace. Teachers shared how her story had helped them discuss difficult topics with students. Couples wrote about finding renewed appreciation for their own relationships. Children from the hospital ward had recorded songs and messages about continuing to be brave. As afternoon approached, Kate asked William to help her complete one final task. Together, they recorded a video message that would serve as her ultimate gift to the world. Speaking directly to the camera with William's hand in hers, Kate shared the most important lessons she had learned about love, loss, and the preciousness of every ordinary moment. Her words were simple but profound, offering comfort to anyone facing similar challenges while celebrating the extraordinary power of love to transcend even death. "I want you to know," she said in the recording, "that love doesn't end when someone leaves. It transforms into something even more beautiful. It becomes the foundation that holds up everyone who was touched by that love." William and I were blessed to share a great love story, but every person who chooses to love genuinely is living their own great love story. Don't wait for perfect moments to express love. Don't assume there will always be more time. Love boldly, forgive quickly, and remember that the smallest acts of kindness can change someone's entire world. Family members began arriving throughout the afternoon, each person bringing their own mixture of grief and gratitude for the time they had been given with Kate. George sat quietly beside his mother's bed, holding her hand while she dozed peacefully. Charlotte softly hummed lullabies that Kate had sung to her as a child. Louis played gentle melodies on his guitar, filling the room with music that seemed to ease everyone's hearts. As evening approached, Kate rallied her remaining strength for final conversations with each family member. She reminded George of his responsibilities, but also encouraged him to lead with his heart as well as his mind. She assured Charlotte that being a mother would be her greatest adventure, and that Kate's love would guide her through every challenge. She told Louis that his music was a gift to the world and urged him to never stop creating beauty, that could comfort and inspire others. Her final conversation was with William, the man who had been her partner, her best friend, and her greatest love for over 2 decades. They spoke about their dreams for their children and grandchildren, the charitable work that would continue in Kate's memory, and the certainty that their love had created something eternal that would outlast their physical separation. Kate made William promise that he would not just survive her passing but would thrive, finding ways to honor their love by continuing to serve others and by eventually opening his heart to new forms of happiness. As night fell, Kate asked for the room to be filled with candlelight and for her favorite flowers to be brought from the garden. The air was sweet with the scent of roses and jasmine, creating an atmosphere of peace rather than sorrow. Family members gathered around her bed, sharing quiet conversation and gentle laughter as they celebrated a life lived with extraordinary grace and purpose. Kate's final hours were marked not by struggle, but by an almost otherworldly serenity. She spoke occasionally about seeing beautiful light and feeling surrounded by love from people who had passed before her, including William's mother Diana, who Kate said was waiting to welcome her and help her watch over their family. Her breathing became gradually more peaceful, like someone settling into the most comfortable sleep. Just before dawn, as the first birds began their morning songs, Kate opened her eyes one final time and looked directly at William. "Thank you," she whispered, "for loving me so completely. Our story continues." Those were her last words, spoken with a smile that remained on her face as she peacefully slipped away, surrounded by the people who had made her life meaningful and whom she had loved with every fiber of her being. The world mourned the loss of a beloved princess, but more importantly, they celebrated the legacy of a woman who had shown that true nobility comes from how we love others and face life's challenges with grace and courage. The farewell she had carefully orchestrated became a healing balm for millions of people, reminding them that love shared genuinely creates connections that death cannot sever. William found strength in completing the final elements of Kate's farewell project, sharing her video messages and letters with the world as she had requested. The response was extraordinary, not just expressions of sympathy, but commitments from people everywhere to love more boldly, appreciate ordinary moments more deeply, and face their own challenges with the same courage Kate had demonstrated. Kate's silent farewell had indeed brought millions to tears, but they were tears of inspiration as much as grief, tears for a love story that reminded the world that some bonds are so strong that not even death can diminish their power to transform lives and touch hearts across all boundaries of time and space.